A text is said to be engaged in the rhetorical strategy of persuasion when it attempts to convince the reader of a certain fact or opinion through the use of reasoning. So the rhetorical strategy of persuasion is when the writer is trying to convince the reader through the use of reasoning. Now, there's a couple of criteria that an essay needs to meet in order to be an effective persuasive essay. So a writer needs to make sure they incorporate these two criteria into any persuasive essay they're writing. So the first one is an effective persuasive essay is somewhat objective. In addition to that, an effective persuasive essay favors one side of the argument. Now, you may be thinking that these are contradictory statements, but these two statements can coexist in an essay. Now, the reason a writer needs to be somewhat objective is that a persuasive essay that does not seriously and reasonably assess the arguments of the other side will not be able to convince an impartial and thoughtful reader. So that's why it's important to be somewhat objective. The essay can't be overly weighted to one side. The writer or the reader needs to feel that the writer weighed both sides of the argument and that they're giving facts from both sides of the argument. Now, in order to be a persuasive essay, however, the essay cannot be totally objective. It has to favor one side of the argument. Now, an informational essay could be totally objective, but in order to be a persuasive essay, the writer does need to favor one side of the argument. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with the writer trying to push one side of the argument. It's just important that they're objective enough that they get some trust with the reader. Now, because the writer is trying to persuade the reader, it's very important in persuasive essays that the reader take care to separate matters of fact from matters of opinion. And so you're probably already familiar with this concept. A matter of fact would be, he was born in 1953. Now, a matter of opinion is, he was a nice man. So these are really very elementary examples of matters of fact and matters of opinion. But notice here, he was born in 1953 as a fact. This is undisputable. But he was a nice man is disputable. People have different ideas of what nice means, and they have a different idea of whether or not this person was a nice man. So it's important that you as a reader are distinguishing between the matters of fact that the writer uses and the matters of opinion that the writer uses, so that you as a reader are not being deceived by the writer.